Hey friends, welcome on in to another Learning Nerd video. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you my top 10 tips for how to get promoted. Whether you are a current instructional designer and you're trying to become a senior instructional designer, or you're already a senior ID and you're trying to be able to take that next step, this video is for you. Now, obvious statement is obvious, but let me say it anyway. In this video, it is my friendly advice about things that have worked for me over the years. It is impossible to be able to share with you universal tips that are just going to work for everybody because, of course, I don't know you, your work history, what you have already done, your organization. It's just impossible to know all of these things. But I would say that if you could just even apply one or two of the tips I'm going to share today, they're definitely going to help you out and to go a long way for your career. So with all of that said, let's dive in to my top 10 tips. Tip number one is to explore the promotional pathways within your organization. There is actually a relatively good chance that your organization already has promotional pathways laid out, and perhaps you just don't know them yet. In some organizations, it's common to have instructional designers by levels, like instructional designers level 1, 2, or 3. You also might have junior instructional designers, mid-level instructional designers, and then senior instructional designers. If that's the case, you already might have this information somewhere within HR or perhaps your manager's brain, and you can pick their brain to be able to get to know a little bit more about how all of these things work. Now, of course, if they do not exist, which is probably more common than not, well, definitely don't worry about that as well, because I have a tip to be able to help you for that too. What I want you to be able to do is to go out and to find other people within your organization who have recently been promoted into the position that you're looking to be able to get. For instance, you can find other people within your organization who recently were promoted to a senior instructional designer or to an assistant director or something along those lines. When I was trying to get promoted, this was the first thing that I wanted to be able to do because I wanted to talk to other people and ask them about the recent experiences and to really dive in deeper into different types of questions. For instance, I asked them questions around what worked well for them. If they can go back in time and do something differently, would they advise me to do something along those lines? What were they advised to be able to do from their manager to help them get promoted? What were they advised not to do? Did something come up or like, no, you shouldn't go down that type of pathway instead? Whatever information they can share with you is absolutely going to be helpful for you to be able to figure out your next step from here. My second tip is to deeply think if this promotion is worth it. Now, I know what you're probably thinking already, where you're like, well, Luke, obviously it's worth it to get promoted. This is what I want to be able to do. This is why I'm watching this video in the first place. I understand, but let me share with you a few things. If you get promoted and you get the title, but it doesn't come with a raise, is it still worth it? Or let's say you get promoted, it doubles your workload, and you only receive a tiny amount for compensation. Is it still worth it? Or maybe you're like me who had to take a pay cut in order to get a promotion. Yeah, I really still can't explain that years later, but that was something that I did actually go through. And of course, would I do it all over again? I would. It was worth it for me. Now, don't get me wrong. At the time, extremely bitter, was not too thrilled to be taking a pay cut within the same organization. Still don't understand that. But the thing was that when I was trying to be able to chart out my current career and thinking about the next 5 years from now, the next 10 years from now, and that type of trajectory, I realized that I wanted to be able to move into this role, even if it meant taking a pay cut. So for me, it was worth it. But I really want you to actually think about this tip and not just gloss over it. Because right now, let's say that you're already doing a million things, what it feels like for your job. And then on top of that too, at home, you have all these other things going on. And now you're going to try to be able to double your workload for perhaps a tiny amount of compensation. Is it worth tanking your mental health and well-being? Want to make sure it's the right place and the right time for you. So please make sure that you are thinking about this before just moving on over ahead. Tip number 3 is to acknowledge that promotions take time. If you are like me and you work in higher education, Chances are you already know this, but just to make sure that you are well aware, is that higher ed does not move quickly. Yes, there are other organizations and corporations where you can get promoted relatively quickly and it can feel like lightning fast. But higher ed is the exact opposite of that. And of course, what is the exact opposite of lightning fast? Darkness, slow, maybe? I don't know. But the thing is that higher ed typically does not move at a fast pace. And because of this, just make sure that you are acknowledging that what you're about to be going through could take you relatively anywhere between 3 to 6 months. Sometimes it's going to take even longer. What I also want you to be able to think about too from this type of perspective is that you're like, well, why is this taking so long? There's a couple of different factors for that. One of the biggest ones that doesn't get talked about enough is when you're trying to be able to plan this out, where are you in the current fiscal year of your organization? Because if HR and your manager did not take into account and budget for perhaps a promotion and a raise for you, that could be a surefire problem. So that might be one of those things. Also, there could be something happening behind the scenes, like an organizational restructure, or for your boss already has different types of plans about where they want to be able to move people around or something along those lines. There's usually something else that's currently happening behind the scenes. So just in case, make sure you are setting realistic expectations. 3 to 6 months for higher ed is certainly one of those types of things, or it could take longer. Once again, it could take shorter if you're already laying out the groundwork and you've been doing this for a long time. It could take a little bit less than that, but overall, set realistic expectations. Tip number 4, make the desire known to your manager that you are looking to get promoted. Now, this one is a bit of a weird tip, but having talked to many instructional designers over the years, I can confidently tell you that I have met many IDs who are perfectly happy just being instructional designers. They have no desire to lead a team or take on larger and more significant types of projects. They love what they do and they don't want to get promoted. So, if that is the case and somehow your manager has that assumption about you, well, you want to make sure that you are clearing the air very quickly that indeed you do want to get promoted to be able to help out the organization, to be able to advance with your skills and everything of a sort. So, when the time is right, most likely in a next upcoming one-on-one or perhaps a performance evaluation, express this desire that you want to be able to grow within the organization. Now, as you're having this conversation, one tip to be able to share with you as well is to be able to really have this conversation and to listen. Try to be able to identify from your manager's perspective their pain points. Because if they are telling you that they are swamped and they have so much on their plate, if there is something that you can identify for jumping into a project and being able to alleviate that problem and to help them with their workload, that is immediately a surefire way to get into the good graces of your manager. So listen to those different types of key points and see if there is something that you can try to be able to take off of their plate to be able to help with everything of a sort. Tip number 5 is to map out the promotion. What does success look like in order to get into this new type of role? Being able to define that success is going to help you with mapping things out on your journey. And you can really get instructional design nerdy here. Let's use backward design to be able to plan out your promotion. We're starting with that end goal in mind for you to be able to get promoted. Then if we work our way backwards, what are the acceptable levels of evidence to be able to say that you are on track? And then take another step backwards towards trying to be able to figure out what different types of opportunities are going to be able to support you into accomplishing these types of feats, which will then be able to accomplish your overarching goal. Now, it's kind of obvious, but mapping things out is going to be able to give you that type of the physical, tangible evidence to be able to say that, okay, I accomplished this and this and this, and hopefully with the accumulation of everything, this is going to help me to get promoted. Tip number 6 is to take the initiative. Now here's a tip that you probably thought was going to be number 1, and here it is in tip number 6. But obvious statement is obvious. You need to be able to raise the bar, to take that next step, and to really take initiative. Now, what does this look like at your organization? It really can all depend. But a couple of different types of ideas for you. For one, is that if you want to become the mentor for the newer instructional designers on the team, or if you want to be more vocal in types of team meetings and volunteer to take on new projects, really stepping up and demonstrating your abilities that you can indeed be seen as a leader on the team, that's a common practice to be able to take as well. Now, of course, once again, as I mentioned a bit ago, is that if you were having that conversation with your manager in your one-on-one, your performance evaluation, and you find out about the types of key things that they are currently working on and why like they are currently drowning in work, if you can take away some of those off of their plates and be able to take ownership of them and then to just do it extremely well and all parties are happy, that's absolutely going to be able to help you to get to that next type of step. Tip number 7, highlight your achievements. So we are all guilty of doing this, where we say we're going to make sure that everything is updated for us, like our resume, our CV, our portfolio. What ends up happening is that we don't, and all of a sudden we need to be able to use one of these, and we're scrambling and being like, what was that project called again? And who did I work with? And how long did that take me? And what exactly did I? And it's not the best when we're trying to be able to think about everything from the past. So instead, let's get ahead of this. So here's what I want you to be able to do. Go back and pull up your performance evaluation from the last year, and let's use this as a guide and as a launching point to help you with your promotion. And instead, let's write down everything as far as for the next upcoming goals about all the different types of tasks and projects and the committees you're going to serve on, all the different types of things you're going to be doing, and write down all the tiny details every step along the way so that way you have this information on hand. And here's what you need to be able to do with this is that you can share this with your manager, because what happens is that your manager is going to have to make the case that you deserve a promotion. It is very rare, unless you are in a very, very tiny organization, it's very rare for this to happen where your manager can just like wave a magic wand and say, yeah, that person deserves a promotion. Typically, that's not how it works. They have to be able to prove that you deserve the promotion by going to their boss and then by sharing with HR that you deserve this and here is why. So you want to be able to help them with making the case for your promotion. And this is the best way to be able to do it, from gathering different pieces of data. And whether this is going to be different types of testimonies from working with other colleagues or from any other different forms of metrics that you can use and talking about things of that nature, anything that you can gather and put into this document to help them to make the case for you, well, that makes sense to be able to do. Tip number 8 is to network internally. Oftentimes, when we talk about networking, we're talking about networking externally with other organizations and other people. But for this tip, not thinking about that. Still very valuable to do this. But in this case, we're thinking about networking with your colleagues in other teams, divisions, units, departments, wherever they are. And the idea around this is that you've already actually done this a bit with trying to be able to talk with other people and ask how they got promoted within the organization. But the idea around this is that you want more people in your corner. So once again, if your manager is making the case to others to be able to say that you deserve a promotion, imagine that they are going to be mentioning this and they say your name within a meeting. What is their reaction going to be like? Are they going to say that, oh yeah, we know that person? They're always the first ones to be able to raise their hand and to help out. They're thinking about cross collaboration. They're trying to be able to share best practices and tips and ideas. That person is amazing. They deserve the raise. Or are they going to say like, who's that? I've never heard of this person before. What have they done? You don't want that. You want the first option. So be able to network with other people internally, and that way you're going to have more people in your corner who are fighting for you. Tip number 9 is to find a mentor. Now, when I say find a mentor, I don't just mean externally. I mean internally. Within your organization, is there someone who you can turn to ask questions specifically around how your organization operates? Having a mentor was absolutely key for me as a first-time manager because I was so used to leading projects and managing these different types of operations and day-to-day things. But then when I started to manage people, was like, oh, this is different. And oftentimes I would get asked a question where I'm like, That's a great question. And no one has ever asked me this before, and I have no idea how to be able to help these people. So, the thing that I found that was extremely helpful was that I found a manager who had a larger team than me. He was already doing this for a couple of years, and I could bring to him these really random one offs and different types of questions that I had no idea how to answer. And he gave me guidance and basically said, Luke, if I was in your shoes, I would do X, Y, and Z, which was so awesome and so valuable to be able to have. So I would recommend to do the same. If you can find a mentor to be able to help you with these different types of more challenging projects and obstacles and different questions that you have never heard about before, that's absolutely going to be able to help you out and to give you clarity around next steps for what to do. And my 10th and final tip is to create the job you want. So this has happened to me several times, and this has happened to many of my colleagues and peers over the years. Maybe it's a higher education thing, I don't know, but oftentimes what ends up happening is that you might be the first senior ID the team has ever hired. You might be the first assistant director of instructional design, the first director of online learning, or whatever it is. And because of that, you very well may get asked as a part of your promotional pathway journey to be able to say, what exactly are you going to be doing in this job to help out the team and the organization? And what does everything actually look like for you? Sounds kind of crazy, but it has happened to me, and it could very well happen to you as well. So if you do find yourself in this position with trying to be able to create the job that's best going to support the team and take things into the right direction, your first step, go into LinkedIn Jobs and search for other relatively similar job titles to yours and see exactly what do they have these people doing within the types of day-to-day operations, job responsibilities, qualifications, anything of a sort. Go through a job posting and be able to learn more about that, because that's going to help you with crafting up your own type of job posting. Now, don't limit yourself to titles, by the way, because different organizations have different titles for things, especially if in instructional design, we have so many darn titles for things. So because of that, go and search for exactly what you want to be doing and where you think it is appropriate for someone of your skill set, your qualifications, what you're currently doing, and what you want to be able to do in the future. Well, learning nerds, those are my 10 tips for you to help you get promoted. If you have recently been promoted, go down below into the comments section and share with us. What did you do? What did you find out worked really well for you to be able to take that next step? The more that we can grow, the more that we can share together, the more that everyone is going to really benefit inside of our instructional design community. Of course, if you like this video, please feel free to share it, to like and subscribe to this channel. That way you'll be the first to know when a new type of video of mine is going to be coming out. And that, friends, that is all I have for you today. Stay nerdy out there, and I'll talk to you next time.